Susan Carr Counselling. I work with both individuals and businesses and offer services along a wide range of issues. So depression, anxiety, loss and bereavement, low self-confidence and self-esteem. And already, you've already practiced one thing, how to beat the January blues, because I know how passionate Sally is about finding gratitude. And actually, that's really important. Quite often when we're feeling low, we see things through that negative lens. So having anything that sort of gets us to focus on the positive can be useful. So you've already done one thing before we've even started. So first of all, the January blues. We're into 2021. It's a new year. It's full of possibilities and opportunities, but quite often we can feel a bit of a slump at this time of year. It can feel lethargic, lacking in motivation, feel a bit low. And there's lots of reasons for that. So firstly, it can be that come down from Christmas. And I know Christmas this year has been totally different and it's not been the same. But even having said that, there can still have been some anticipation in the run up to Christmas. Some of you may have been fortunate enough to meet with family and friends, had time to relax. So the first thing is it's that come down from that enjoyable time. Secondly, with that is if you were lucky enough to have a break, you've got that return to work. So you might have felt that dread, oh, I've got to go back to the normal routine. What am I facing in the office? We've also got the shorter days. So it's quite often dark when we get up, dark when we get home from work or finish our working day. There's the weather, like Sally said, here in Manchester, it's raining again. Quite often the skies are grey, doesn't really give you that lift. Obviously, we've started 2021 and immediately gone into another national lockdown. And we also have Brexit. So there's quite a lot of things that might be making us feel a bit lower. And in fact, next Monday, which is the third Monday of January, is dubbed Blue Monday because it's alleged that it's the most depressing day of the year. And what the story goes is some scientist calculated what was the most depressing day using that formula there. So the capital W is weather, the little d is debt. So that's the other thing to note at this time of year. Quite often employers will pay the December salary a bit earlier to prepare for Christmas, but then you've got a longer gap till your payday at the end of January. You've also had the expense of Christmas, so money might be a bit tight at this time of year. You've got the capital T, which is the time since Christmas. The little q there that you times or you multiply the T by is allegedly the time since you've broken your New Year's resolutions. The capital M is your low motivation levels, and the NA is that need to take some action about all this. They haven't defined, though, the capital D, and there's no real measurement or unit. And surprise, surprise, that's because it's not actually a scientific formula. What this was a publicity stunt by a holiday company trying to sell us holidays. So you might see lots actually on Monday on your social media streams about it being the most depressing day of the year, but just bear in mind that that isn't true. We're all going to feel low or feel better at different times, and there's not one single day when we're all going to feel exactly the same. Having said that, one of the positives is that with that stream, there will be lots of tips about how you can overcome that Blue Monday. So ignore the fact that it is the most depressing day, but take on board maybe some of those suggestions that are there. And for anybody who is interested, in the same way that we've calculated what's the most depressing day, allegedly the happiest day of the year is the 14th of July. So that's something to look forward to. So I mentioned there about how next Monday is allegedly the most depressing day. And I just want to take a pause and just talk a little bit about depression and the difference between, having the blues, feeling down in the dumps, feeling low, feeling like you've lost your mojo, and actual depression. And the tips that I'm sharing you today are more aimed for lifting that low mood as opposed to combating depression. The other thing to note about depression is it's an umbrella term. There's quite a lot of different types of depression. So within that, there's clinical depression. There's the depression that's associated with bipolar disorder, which used to be called manic depression. Seasonal affective disorder, that's actually a type of depression. Obviously got postnatal depression. And you can also have situational depression, which is about that depression that's just caused by your circumstances and what's going on for you. And like I said, we're all going to have days where we feel a bit lower, and life can make us go up and down. What you need to be looking out for with depression is where those symptoms go on for quite a long period of time, or they come and go on a very regular basis. And some of the things to look out for are listed there under the different headings of feelings, thoughts, behaviour and physical symptoms. So some of those feelings are common to both depression and sort of low mood. So you do feel low, but with depression it tends to be intensified. So you might feel numb and empty and hopeless, maybe lots of tearfulness, will withdraw from other people, and you find it very hard with depression to have pleasure in life and the things that you normally enjoy. It can affect your mental functioning. So quite often with depression and anxiety, you can have forgetfulness, you can have difficulty concentrating, really does impact on your self-confidence and self-esteem. You can also adopt different behaviours. So like say you might stop doing your hobbies, withdraw from social events, increase your use of tobacco and alcohol and drugs. And those are short-term coping strategies that don't always help, particularly alcohol. Yes, it can maybe block out what's going on for you, but actually alcohol is a depressant, so that's going to make your depression worse. And then you can also experience physical symptoms, so problems with sleep, loss of appetite or overeating, general tiredness. So just to keep an eye on those symptoms. And if you do have any concerns that your low mood is going on for a long time, I would always recommend that you speak to your GP. They're the people who can formally diagnose it and suggest different routes, which for some people might be medication, but more often than not, there's more emphasis on different kinds of talking therapies. So do get that checked out. However, today we're just going to concentrate on those winter and those January blues. So what sort of things can you do to beat the blues? The first one there is be kind to yourself. And for those of you who come to the regular Wellbeing Thursday night in conversations with Sally, or if you've been on my other webinars, this is really a bit of a mantra and is always my starting point. It's about showing yourself that self-compassion, which I did do a webinar on, and just actually looking after yourself, being kind to yourself, not putting pressure on yourself. And it is about really acceptance. So going back to what we were saying at the beginning about why you might feel low at this time of year, there's lots of reasons the weather is bad. So actually, it might be quite normal to be experiencing these feelings at the moment, and not putting pressure on yourself going, I should be feeling better, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, which again was something that I mentioned in the self-compassion webinar, eliminating the word should from your language, because all it does is put pressure on yourself, put expectations. You can end up feeling guilty, and that adds then to that low mood, and it's a bit of a vicious cycle. It's also about recognizing that ebb and flow. Our body's energy levels do ebb and flow, and it's natural that we're not going to feel exactly the same every single day. So going with it, if you feel tired one day, then rest if you need it. And if you think about animals, quite a lot of animals hibernate over winter because of that. They store their energy, they save the resources, and okay, we can't hibernate from October to March, but maybe we can take some of the pressure off. Maybe we can allow ourselves to rest more and really listen to your body. Quite often, again, these are the signals and the signs that you need to take it easy. So listen to them. And although, yes, it is really good to practice positivity, equally, if you go too far to the other extreme and are constantly always trying to be positive and not allowing yourself to experience your normal feelings and emotions, that can also not always be healthy. You don't have to pretend it's fine. Yes, certainly try and look for the positive, but don't force yourself if you don't feel like it. So that really underpins all the things that I'm going to say. Next one, add a little hygge into your life. So this was really, really popular back in 2016, partly I think because there are a lot of Scandi dramas on, so things like The Killing and Borgen and The Bridge. And also Denmark rates very highly in the World Happiness Report. So back in 2016, it was the happiest country in the world. And although in 2020, Finland is number one, Denmark is number two, and it's always up there either in that 1, 2, or 3 spot. So then there was a lot of looking at what are the reasons why Denmark is one of the happiest places to live. And some of it came back to Hyege, which is a concept that really is embedded in the culture, and it comes from an old Norse word that means thinking and feeling satisfied. And if you want to think about how you can embrace Hyege into your life, it is a bit like this picture. So it's thinking of that, putting on your cozy woolen socks, putting that blanket round you, sitting in the front of that roaring open fire. And it's really that coziness, that nurturing. If you want to think of what the environment is and how to create it, you only have to look at the soft furnishings section of IKEA and you've got the idea. It can also be things like swapping that harsh light for candlelight. And it's really about nourishment. So in terms of eating, thinking about warm, hearty stews and soups. But again, the Danes do that in moderation. So I know I'm not going to go on about nutrition because I'm not a nutritionist. And I know last week, Sally did have a couple of webinars where people were talking about the benefits of eating and healthy eating and nutrition. So maybe if you want to look into that, go back to those webinars. But just think about that idea of Hyege and nourishment and coziness. And the other thing is, although Hyege doesn't mean hugs, actually, it may be loosely connected with the word hug. And when you give somebody a hug or when you receive a hug, you released oxytocin is released, which is the cuddle hormone. And it's suggested that a 20-second hug should release that. And that's, again, helps you feel better, improves your mood. And obviously, at the minute with lockdown, it's much harder to have that natural touch and to see people and hug. So first of all, if you are lucky enough to be living with other people, then maybe try and get those hugs, maximize those as much as possible. Or if you're living on your own, trying to replicate that. So some people might feel a bit silly doing this, but there's nothing to stop you giving yourself a hug, rubbing your arms, making yourself feel better, or getting a blanket and wrapping itself around you, or cuddling up with a hot water bottle or a cushion or a pillow. Just giving yourself that, yeah, Sally, I can see your hot water bottle, that making yourself feel warm and cozy and fuzzy. So giving yourself that little hug, or if you don't want to do that, that pat on the back. Actually, as well, Hyege is about getting outside. So Denmark isn't a hot, sunny climate, but part of Hyege, the Danes do, embrace the outdoor lifestyle, going out on hikes, cycling, so getting outdoors. And again, it's about that wrapping up, putting on your woolly jumper, your warm coat, your hat, your scarf, your gloves, and getting outside. And as Alfred Wainwright said, there's no such thing as bad weather, just unsuitable clothing. So there's no excuse. Yes, it is a bit grey and it is a bit drizzly, but trying to get outside can boost your mood. And one of the things I said is about the darker nights is there isn't less natural sunlight. So trying to maximise that as much as possible, whether that is going outside or leaving your curtains open for as long as possible, or investing, if you do suffer from SAD, in a light box. Unfortunately, in our hemisphere, we don't get enough natural vitamin D from outside. So again, it might be considering taking a supplement, but just generally trying to get outside, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes a day. Equally as well, there's a lot of research into the benefits of being in nature. So there's a whole type of therapy called ecotherapy, where therapists use the nature and the environment in their therapy. And again, looking at other countries and what they do for well-being. I'm not sure if any of you come across the practice of forest bathing from Japan. And that again is just that getting outside, being in woodland, sort of having your senses and really appreciating what's out you. So there's loads of benefits to being outside, which can help boost your mood and get rid of those January blues. Next one is about connecting. So we are, as humans, social beings, and it really is important for us to have that connection. Now, if we are feeling a bit low, sometimes we feel like we might not have anything to say, we might not feel like contacting our friends and family. And again, if you have that balance, it is important to have time for yourself, and you don't always have to be talking all the time. But equally, it's about not allowing that to go on for too long, where you do become withdrawn and isolated, because again, it's that vicious circle. You can then feel lower in mood. So making sure you make the most of those connections, which at the moment, again, can be quite difficult. We're not really able to see other people on a face-to-face basis, but that doesn't mean that we can't maximise those other opportunities, whether that is sending a text message or a WhatsApp message, or sending that email, or old-fashioned telephone call, or doing those video calls. All those things are about maintaining that contact. Even letter writing, so okay, it's not that spontaneous immediate interaction and connection, but by the process of writing to someone, you're connecting with them. And then there's that also that, if hopefully they'll respond, that excitement of getting a letter, not just a bill through the post. So, or it could be sending a card or a postcard just saying, I'm thinking of you. Those are all ways of connecting. And just while we are talking about writing, I don't think I've spoken very much, but there is a real therapeutic value to writing, whether that is sending a letter or journaling can be really beneficial. So writing down how you're feeling, or practicing your gratitude in a gratitude journal. There is lots of benefits to writing. And also, just in terms of connection, it's not always those connections with people you know. It might be when you're out and about, if you are doing your daily exercise that you're allowed and you're out for a walk, smiling at somebody else, or just saying good morning, or how are you, good afternoon. Those are all mini micro ways of connecting with people. If you do live on your own, again, you might find your opportunities to talking to other people are more limited. And to create that illusion of not being alone, things like listening to podcasts or listening to the radio or having voices in the background do create that sense of connection, even though you're not actually interacting with those people, so that you can feel less alone. So there's lots of ways that we can still try and connect with others. Sleep is so important for both our physical and our mental health. And again, this time of year can interrupt our natural sleeping patterns, just because of the difference in light, and those natural cycles can get disrupted. Again, with lockdown, people's normal routines can be interrupted. So maybe you're not getting up at the normal time, you're sleeping in. And the first thing to say actually is, this goes back to that being kind to yourself. If you're needing extra sleep at this time of year and you don't need to get up, allow yourself that extra time. Don't beat yourself up going, oh, it's 10 o'clock, I should have got up at 8 o'clock, if you didn't need to. Being kind to yourself. On the other hand, if it is a problem and you are finding that you're not sleeping, your patterns are out of sync, trying to establish that routine. So really keeping with your normal bedtime, so that you try and get up at the same time each day. That can help form those habits. Having a bedtime routine. So as parents with children, quite often you recognise that benefit of a routine, have the bath, read them the story. But as adults, we can also benefit from that bedtime routine, that signal to ourselves that we're winding down for bed. So it might be you have a bath every night just to relax, or you read a book, generally trying to have something that you don't immediately go from whatever you're doing straight to bed. You have some sort of transitional period. Things like making sure that where you're sleeping is the right environment. It's not too dark, it's not too cold, it's not too noisy. Maybe doing something like doing some relaxation exercises or breathing exercises, or listening to a podcast such as Talking More, to help you sort of relax and unwind. And in terms of, if one of the things that can interrupt sleep or can cause difficulty in you getting off to sleep is those racing thoughts, having something like a pen and paper by the side of your bed where you can literally clear your mind, and your mind sort of knows that you've noted those thoughts down somewhere and can sort of let go of them, that then the next morning you can come back to them and look what you've written down and is there anything you need to do about them. And quite often when you reflect, you can sort of go, I don't even know why I was thinking about that last night. So having that notepad can be really helpful. And just the last thing to mention on sleep is the sort of current advice is that if you haven't fallen asleep, or if you've woken up and you're trying to get back to sleep and you've not done so within that first 20 minutes, don't lie there tossing and turning, because you're just putting pressure on yourself. If you can sort of sit up in bed and maybe read, do some light reading, or if you can't do that or you don't want to disturb someone else, it might be getting up and just going and making yourself a drink, preferably not a caffeinated drink, and sitting there quietly till you start to feel tired, and then go back and try again and repeat that process till you do actually get off to sleep. Be active. Again, it's quite obvious one, but being active is good for both our physical and our mental health. And exercise does release chemicals such as endorphins and serotonin that improve your mood. As I said, this time of year you can feel quite sluggish and there's a bit of a slump, whereas exercise increases your energy levels, which can then also make you feel more motivated for the rest of the day, particularly if you do it first thing in the morning. It can boost your self-esteem because it gives you that sense of achievement. And we don't have to be active in that stereotypical getting sweaty at the gym, although at the minute I know we can't go to the gym, or even going out running. It's just anything where you're getting moving, you're getting your heart rate up a little bit, whether that is going for a walk around the block, going for a run, running up and down your stairs, doing yoga, or I know Joe Wicks is starting back, I think 3 times a week, his PE with Joe, getting involved in that, or just having a dance around the kitchen. Anything that just gets you moving can really improve your mood. And really that ties in with the next obvious thing, making time for things that you enjoy. So that might be having a dance. It could be getting creative with mindful colouring or doing some knitting. It could be having that relaxing bath, both because you enjoy it and as a way to help you sleep. It could be reading, watching your favourite film. And again, quite often what happens when we have low mood, and if you go back to the slide, particularly when we're looking at depression and sort of behaviours, we can stop doing the things that we enjoy. And that's that vicious circle, because we're feeling low in moods, we don't have the energy to do the things that we enjoy, but those are the things that can help lift our mood. So we slump and you're stuck in that vicious circle. So it can be actually even more important when you're feeling low to make time for the things that you enjoy. And I'm not a music therapist, but again, in the same way I've said that the benefits of being outside can be used in therapy, music itself can be used as a therapy. And I'm sure you've all appreciated how music does impact on your mood. It can be used to make you feel happy, or you can feel sad depending on what you're listening to. It can motivate you. So I know if I go out running, if there's a slower track on, I might run a bit slower. If there's a faster track, I run faster. It also actually, I've noticed, motivates me to do my housework. So if I put my favourite CD on, then I'm more likely to do the housework than if I'm just trying to do it without listening to music. So it might be trying to harness things like the power of music. And at this time of year, it could be making your playlist of what your favourite songs are, so you know that that's your go-to list of tracks that make you feel happier. And within that, it's also about not just doing things on a daily basis that you enjoy, planning in those things that you look forward to, which I know is a lot harder now because of lockdown and the uncertainty. But if we go back to Blue Monday and that being a ploy by a holiday company, quite a lot of the adverts at this time of year are about summer holidays. And in the past, I think possibly that has been one of the suggestions of how you get over the January blues, plan your summer holiday. You might not be able to plan your summer holiday, but maybe you can plan some things in your diary that you're looking forward to. Or I've put on there, if you enjoy gardening, you might not be able to do much gardening at the moment if the weather's bad, but you might be able to plan out what you'd like to do in your garden, or order your seeds, or what other equipment you need. So as well as doing the things you enjoy, also having things in your diary that you can look forward to, that's really helpful to lifting your mood. And then the last thing that I'm just going to talk about today is taking stock of your life. So again, I suppose this ties in with New Year's resolution. Quite often the start of the year is a time to reflect, both on the year that's gone by and what you want to achieve in this year. But taking stock of your life, not in a new year, new you kind of way that puts that pressure on yourself, just maybe taking that time to think about what you would like to achieve. Now, I know that's difficult when we can't control what's going to happen this year, but it might be just thinking about some of your priorities, what sort of things you'd like to do. If you are creative, and this ties in as well, doing things you enjoy, maybe making yourself a vision board. So getting those magazines out, cutting out those pictures, and really thinking about what sort of things you want in your life this year. But with that, and I think this is really important, is quite often we can focus on what we want to achieve and not look back and see what we've already achieved. And it's a bit like if you were climbing a mountain, you can be really focused on how far we've got to go to get to the summit. And you don't very often turn round and appreciate how far up the mountain you've come or what the view is from there. So quite often before you make plans or goals or resolutions, think about what you've done so far and how to build on that, rather than, again, this is being kind to yourself, beating yourself up for what you've not achieved. So being really reflective and kind to yourself in that planning. If you are going to make some goals or resolutions, one of the ways that can help you have success rather than failure is to ensure that you make them smart. You've probably come across this before, but in terms of, let's use, if I had wanted to lose weight, if I just said I wanted to lose weight, that's quite vague and may not help me achieve that. Whereas if I'm very specific with that, if I say I want to lose a stone, it gives me something to measure, because I can weigh myself now and I can weigh myself at the end. I can set myself a time frame, and within that time frame, that's one of the things that will show whether or not my goal's attainable. So if I said I wanted to lose a stone in a week, that's highly unlikely. Whereas if I said I wanted to lose a stone in 3 months, that may be more attainable. And the other thing with your goals or your plans, make them relevant. You're not going to achieve something if it's not really something you want to do. So possibly, and I don't know whether this is true, if I set myself a goal of having completed a marathon by the end of the year, maybe that might be achievable, provided I've set my time frame and my training's right. But if it's not something that fits in with what I want to achieve, then I'm not really going to do it. And then I'll feel like I've not achieved that goal. So making sure that you use SMART when you are setting any goals or any plans. And then just as a final note of taking stock of your life is sometimes, yes, these January blues are a reflection of the time of year and they are temporary, but the blues can also be, and again, this ties in with listening to your body, they can also be a sign that there might be something wrong in your life. Maybe you're not enjoying your job or your relationship isn't going well. And quite often what happens with a break, particularly the Christmas break, is you've put to one side those difficulties, you've had a good time or you've had a rest from work, and then you go back into your everyday life and suddenly there's this big reminder of what's not going well. So I would always listen to yourself and think about, is there something actually, yes, okay, yeah, I could have a bath every night, but if I'm really unhappy in my job, that's not going to help the situation. So it can be looking at, are there some changes that I need to make? So those are my details if anybody did want any more information or has any questions, but I will be around now if anybody's got any immediate questions.
Brilliant. Well, firstly, I think, have you stopped sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry.
Great. Can we just do that's all right, a round of applause for Susan, please. Susan, thank you. That was really, really useful.